Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. This time, we're trading our scuba gear for something, well, a little less glamorous. The official records of your very own Seattle City Council. You might be thinking, wait, those notoriously dry meeting minutes. And yeah, you're not wrong. But trust me, there are some seriously interesting nuggets buried in there. You actually sent in minutes from April 2nd and 9th of this year, and let me tell you, even I was surprised by what we dug up. It's like panning for gold. You have to sift through a lot of routine stuff. But with the expert by my side, we're going to separate those everyday details from the gold nuggets of insight about how this city really ticks.
It's always a pleasure to dive into a new set of documents, and these are particularly intriguing. City Council minutes often fly under the radar, but they're a treasure trove of information about the nitty-gritty of local government.
Right off the bat, the April 2nd meeting minutes throw us a little curveball. Council members Morales and Strauss were both running a bit behind. Now, I know a minute or two might seem like no big deal, but in the grand scheme of a tightly orchestrated meeting, every second counts.
A tiny detail like that can actually tell us a lot about how things work behind the scenes. Is this a one-time thing, or could it hint at a power dynamic between council members? Maybe Morales and Strauss are on a powerful subcommittee or leading a critical project, or maybe they just need a better alarm clock. Either way, it sparks a curiosity, doesn't it?
And speaking of Councilmember Strauss, it seems he missed the April 9th meeting entirely. This time it was an excused absence, so we can only speculate about what important business or brunch plans kept him away.
You know, those absences, especially when they become a pattern, are like little clues about the people behind those titles. It reminds us that even city council members have lives outside those chambers. They get sick, they have other commitments, and yes, sometimes they just run late.
Now let's talk proclamations.
hmm
These are always fun because they give us a glimpse into what the council considers noteworthy. The minutes mention council members Moore and Wu presented one, but the topic remains a mystery. It's like a city hall cliffhanger.
It's like finding a missing piece of a puzzle. Was it something lighthearted, like honoring a local sports team or celebrating a cultural festival? Or was it a more serious proclamation addressing a pressing social issue? Whatever it was, it clearly caught the council's attention.
And get this, a whopping 24 people signed up for public comment that day. That's not just your average zoning debate, my friend. Something was definitely brewing in Seattle that week. We see some familiar names like Gary Lardizabal and Jason O'Golnick, those local government meeting superstars who never miss a chance to speak their minds. But then there's a whole bunch of new names, which tells me this was no ordinary meeting.
A high volume of public comment often points to a particularly contentious or important issue on the table. It's a good reminder that those public comment periods aren't just for show. They're a vital channel for citizens to make their voices heard, to challenge decisions, and to hold their elected officials accountable.
And speaking of holding the city accountable, there's a curious detail about Ordinance CB 112-760, which involves appropriating money to pay certain claims from the week of March 18th. Now I know what you're thinking. Appropriating money sounds like a snooze fest. But bear with me.
While it might not be as glamorous as, say, a heated debate about a new park or development project, these routine financial transactions actually reveal a lot about how a city functions. It tells us about the city's financial obligation, its priorities, and even its potential vulnerabilities.
And you know what else caught my eye? The Seattle LGBTQ Commission and the Community Involvement Commission, they had a bunch of new appointments. 4, to be exact. So let's talk about what these commissions do.
These commissions are a fantastic example of how local government extends beyond the walls of City Hall. They're essentially advisory groups made up of everyday citizens who are passionate about specific issues. These folks dedicate their time and expertise to help shape city policies that reflect the needs and values of their communities.
And the fact that we see so many appointments suggests a vibrant and engaged citizenry.
Yeah.
It means people are stepping up, raising their hands and saying, hey, I want to be a part of making the city a better place. That's something to celebrate, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It's a powerful reminder that we all have a role to play in shaping our communities, but we're not done with those city council minutes just yet. There's a whole other layer of intrigue waiting for us, and it involves some serious labor negotiations. We'll get to that right after a quick break.
All right, deep divers, let's plunge back into the world of Seattle City Council minutes with the April 9th meeting. Remember Councilmember Strauss, who was fashionably late to the April 2nd meeting? Well, he's officially excused this time around. 2 excused absences in a row. Maybe those rumors about his marathon coffee breaks are true. Or perhaps he's off negotiating a major city deal. Whatever the reason, it's clear that Councilmember Strauss keeps us guessing. Speaking of intriguing details, let's talk about CF 314512, the vacation of an alley. Now, I know you're thinking vacation for an alley. Did it get a timeshare in Palm Springs, too?
Not quite. Vacating an alley essentially means the city is giving up its claim to that public space. It sounds simple enough, but this seemingly small act can have huge ripple effects.
Okay.
Often it paves the way literally for new development or utility transfers. Imagine a developer eyeing that alley for a new apartment complex or a homeowner wanting to extend their property line. Vacating the alley makes those scenarios possible.
So, while it might seem like a minor detail buried in the minutes, this alley vacation could actually be a harbinger of bigger changes coming to Seattle's urban landscape. It makes you wonder what other seemingly mundane items in these minutes hint at larger trends and transformations.
It's like a game of Civic. Where's Waldo trying to spot those subtle clues that tell a larger story?
But enough with the serious stuff for a moment. Let's talk about something a little more lighthearted. Resolution 32132. Ah yes, the honorary street naming. Always a crowd pleaser. This time it's for a certain Weir Harmon Way. Now, I'll admit I had to consult my trusty Seattle history books on this one. It turns out we don't know exactly who Weir Harmon was or what they did to earn this honor. But the fact that 8th Avenue between Seneca and Spring now bears their name suggests they were a figure of some local significance.
It's a good reminder that history isn't just made up of presidents and wars. It's also shaped by the countless individuals who contribute to their communities in unique and meaningful ways. And sometimes those contributions are immortalized in the form of street signs.
And who knows, maybe someday there will be a street named after you for your dedication to deciphering city council minutes.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves. But speaking of those minutes, we've still got a whole section to unpack. And this one takes us deep into the world of labor relations in Seattle.
This is where things get really interesting. Remember that cluster of ordinances we mentioned earlier? CB 120756, CB 120757, CB 120758, and CB 120759. Well, they all have one thing in common: unions. Seattle has a long and storied history with organized labor, and these ordinances offer a glimpse into the ongoing dance between the city government and its unionized workforce. We're talking about thousands of city employees, firefighters, police officers, teachers, sanitation workers, all relying on these negotiations to determine their wages, benefits, and working conditions. So what can you, our intrepid listener, glean from these seemingly impenetrable ordinances?
Well, for starters, the fact that there are 4 separate ordinances suggests that these negotiations weren't just a rubber stamp. There were likely some serious points of contention being hammered out behind closed doors. Were there threats of strikes? Did the city have to make tough budget cuts to accommodate union demands? These ordinances might not spell out the nitty-gritty details of the negotiations, but they do offer a fascinating glimpse into the power dynamics at play.
And remember those 24 people who showed up for public comment on April 2nd. I wouldn't be surprised if some of them were there to voice their opinions on these very negotiations. After all, these agreements don't just impact city employees. They have ripple effects on the entire city.
Exactly. Higher wages for city workers might mean higher taxes for residents. Improved working conditions for firefighters could lead to faster response times and safer neighborhoods. These negotiations are about a lot more than just dollars and cents. They're about the very fabric of life in Seattle.
It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it,
Yeah.
you know? These decisions, big and small, they shape the city we experience every day, from the buses we ride to the libraries we visit.
And to think, all of this drama just hiding in plain sight within those meeting minutes.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that local government...
It isn't some abstract concept.
Right.
It's happening right here, right now. And it affects us all in very tangible ways.
Totally. And, going through these minutes, I feel like we've been given a backstage pass to City Hall. We've seen the inner workings, the debates, the compromises, even the occasional power struggle.
Oh, absolutely.
And just like any good show, it leaves us wanting more. Did those labor negotiations result in a fair deal for everyone? What was that mysterious proclamation all about?
Right.
And perhaps most importantly, what stories are lurking within the minutes of your city council meetings?
Exactly.
Because let's be real, before this deep dive, I wouldn't have given those minutes a second thought.
Okay.
But now, I'm hooked. It's like discovering a hidden world, full of intrigue and unexpected twists.
Absolutely.
It reminds me of that saying, the truth is stranger than fiction. Except in this case, It's not just stranger. It's also a lot more relevant to our daily lives.
Absolutely. These minutes may not be the most exciting read on their own,
Yeah.
but they hold the key to understanding how our cities function, for better or for worse.
For better or for worse, yeah.
And, you know, perhaps by shining a light on these seemingly mundane documents, we can inspire more people to get involved in their local communities.
Totally.
Because at the end of the day, a city is only as strong as the engagement of its citizens, right?
Couldn't have said it better myself. Well, folks, it seems we've reached the end of our City Council Minutes Deep Dive. Who knew those pages could hold so much intrigue?
I know, right?
Really does. It
Yeah.
just goes to show that you can find fascinating stories in the most unexpected places, even in the dry world of government documents.
That's right.
Huge thank you to you, our listener, for providing the inspiration for this deep dive. Remember, knowledge is power, and sometimes that knowledge is just a City Council meeting minutes away. Keep exploring, deep divers, and we'll catch you next time.